Alex, are we doing this episode just so I can see that on you? What are we doing here?
My Super Santa Mario themed Christmas sweater?
Did you not get the note that nobody's going to see this until January? You're wearing this for Sophia and I.
Yeah, that's okay. I think any day is a good day for a Christmas sweater.
I admire your courage to put yourself out there for just the two of us. Well, not for me.
Well, I put it on today because we're doing a sort of retroactive, a sort of retro episode, right? We're going to go through various snippets of old episodes, which just reminds me of growing up and watching Different Strokes or Facts of Life. Their Christmas episodes were always flashback episodes, probably because they were all too busy in the holidays, which is exactly what is happening here. We're all too busy wrapping up the year. So we thought, let's do a podcast episode where we just play old episodes rather than watch, get a separate guest and have to do our research. And we do a whole lot of research anyways, but get a whole separate guest and do a whole episode. So I don't know. It spoke to me this morning.
I see the way. Oh, it says something to me too. I see the way we're going here is I'll have to be the serious one because nobody's going to take you seriously in that thing.
That's a stretch.
But the serious part is they're not old episodes. They're as valuable and current as ever. Now,
sure.
These are the things that we think were the best of what we heard from our guests this year, and we think they're as timely as ever now. So that's why we're sharing them with our audience. That and Alex had a Christmas break to take and in this sweater.
All right. So let's get into the first snippet. So it's Mary Beth Hertz, who was either our first or one of our very, very first episodes. And Mary Beth came and talked to us about AI. And it was, there's a lot of podcast episodes out there on AI, but I think this snippet really does a great job of kind of helping to contextualize the power of AI, not just as sort of a tool to generate stuff, but really be a thought partner to really go back and forth, just like you would, just like Bob, you and I do when we're talking about ideas for, our companies, etc. That banter is so much more valuable. And she talks about using AI as that thought partner.
I won't deny that AI is much more valuable than you are when bantering about our various businesses or how we're going to tackle educational problem in our schools. But I won't disagree with you on any of it. It was one of our first episodes, and and I had thought of myself as an AI user prior to that. Now, this was a year ago or more.
Right.
And honestly, I think I speak for Sophia and yourself too, that episode really made us think about the possibilities of no longer using it to, I need a recap of meeting minutes. We thought about it as suddenly a thought partner, something that can enhance the way we think, good or bad, I guess, but enhance the way we think and refine our thought process to deliver a message more clearly and typically more concisely.
The most important thing is for teachers to see the value in it, but also understand that it's more than just generating a 5-paragraph essay, right? The idea of it, leveraging it as a thought partner and leveraging it to have conversations and to probe it, right? To give you more or to refine or to do those kinds of things. Because until teachers really understand that aspect of it, there's no way that we're going to know how to guide students through that use of it, which is the way we want students to use. There's a lot of potential for these tools to, especially when we talk about inquiry, right? I work at an inquiry-based school. How better could you get at teaching kids how to ask good questions, right? Or learning how to ask follow-up questions. What kind of questions do I ask to get the right kind of feedback that I'm looking for, or those kinds of things?
Alex, when we talked to Susan Bearden, what struck me, or something that stayed with me, is I always like a good analogy. We always try to talk to our tech people about talking to people in terms they understand. No DHCP, no TCP/IP.
Right.
We want to talk about things they understand. And her analogy of Tinker Toys, Lincoln Logs, and Legos, all things that I loved back in your 80s.
Right.
But that really made it like I could explain this to my parents, is the interoperability of databases and why it's a problem.
It's huge. I have always loved putting various data sets together when I was a tech director, and still do here in my work with educational collaborators and Pacific OneSource. But I've never been able to describe it, the nature of the problem, quite so succinctly as playing with those toys. This one's great.
So you have these 3 sets of systems, and all of these systems are used to build things, and they all are designed to work with each other. So Legos are designed to work with Legos. Lincoln Logs work with Lincoln Logs, and Tinker Toys work with Tinker Toys. That's the way, if you imagine it, the way data is stored. Data is stored in systems that are often proprietary, just like Legos, Lincoln Logs, and Tinker Toys. Now, if say that you want to combine Legos with Lincoln Logs, it would be difficult to do because they weren't designed to work together. If you had a 3D printer, you could probably design some connectors and figure out how to make it work, but it wouldn't be very elegant. It would be expensive. It would require specialized expertise, and it wouldn't be scalable.
So, and another great analogy Lane Young gives us when talking about cybersecurity. And he uses the analogy of like Swiss cheese, because the reality is, any layer of or strategy that you have, it's going to have holes in it, right? But when you layer and put all those pieces together, what you get is ultimately what is a pretty solid block of security, or, says the guy from Wisconsin, just excellent cheese.
Wow. Worse than the sweater. Is that an easy reply to? Anyway, I digress. Making fun of you, Alex, it just gets too easy. I will say this about Lane's metaphor and the idea of implementation is the more layers, that the better your security is. And it was one of the things that we stressed in our cybersecurity month was cybersecurity isn't a technology problem. Cybersecurity isn't fixed with one thing. Cybersecurity isn't a single solution. And I think Lane's discussion there is what lays it out for us easily to understand.
Yeah. And though we're showing the snippet from the cybersecurity episode, that philosophy was so strong and resonated so well with us, and I think our audience, that we brought him back to even talk about physical security in another episode.
In the same approach.
Yep, indeed.
We use the Swiss cheese as a metaphor that you're going to have holes in any given layer of your approach, right? So if you think of Swiss cheese, there's obviously holes in there. And so what you're trying to do, though, is put together a block so that no hole goes all the way through there. If we're trying to do multiple complementary layers so that even if something gets through one particular hole, we have a way of finding it. So in cybersecurity, that might mean that we are doing proactive monitoring of our network activity, for instance. So we are allowing our teachers to have local admin rights, but then we have some ability to flag things that might be suspicious at the network level to say, hey, they've installed something that maybe they shouldn't have. We need those overlapping pieces because there isn't one answer.
Alex, this conversation that we had with my friend Dr. Melvin Brown last year is one that we talked about some because it didn't focus on technology. I don't even know if we brought up technology in it, but it was quite descriptive of the challenges that schools are facing. In his instance, a big school in Montgomery Public Schools, but little schools face those same challenges, public, independent. They all have them. And I think it's important that we if you haven't, I'll stop here. If you haven't listened to this whole episode, we thought it was worth your time that we re-released this last week for you to listen to. It didn't talk about technology. It talked about the challenges that schools face. And we have to remember that technology isn't going to solve all of these problems, but we do hope that it helps. That's what Alex and I are in business to do, is to make it better. But this is a very good conversation, some of which was very enlightening for myself.
Well, one of my favorite episodes, and I'm glad we re-released it over the holidays. The authenticity with which Dr. Brown speaks of the challenges that students are bringing into school every day, and the starting point, the widely varying starting points at which our students are when they walk into our classrooms every day, is something that just must be considered. This was a great snippet and really, quite frankly, a spectacular episode.
Sometimes those issues manifest themselves in schools. Fortunately, we haven't had any types of violent issues that would have gotten that kind of recognition or that kind of attention. We've been very fortunate in that regard. And we have a lot of safeguards to prevent ourselves from being in that predicament. But still, those issues, that trauma, those experiences still come to our front doors, and they show up every day in classrooms. You want to be able to work with kids to get them to achieve, to get them to aspire to new and different things. But they're bringing all these things to the classroom. We can't ignore those things. We have to be able to support them in that regard so they can be successful.
So we had Gary Stager on the episode, and I'll be honest, I was a little nervous. I've known Gary for a long time. He likes being controversial, particularly on social media, and I was afraid he would just piss one of us off. I'm not sure I want to say piss off, so I'll redo that. But we had Gary Stager on the show. He likes to be controversial, and I was a little bit afraid of that, particularly in social media. He likes to be controversial, but having him on the show, I was afraid that he would seek to upset one of us on the episode, which may have been a much more interesting episode, but I'm not sure how it would have gone. But Gary is, and I think this is why he likes to create controversy, is he loves the dialogue. He loves that back and forth that comes in it. And as I was thinking of this snippet where he talks about how computers are supposed to work for us, it really made me think about what we were saying about Mary Beth earlier in this very episode and how AI can be a thought partner for us. And I think that's more in line with what Gary wants technology to be for people, but he was ready to embrace how technology could do that literally 2 to 3 decades before, ChatGPT.
I'm going to let your thoughts stand alone and say that this actually made me think, the conversation with Gary made me think of our conversation with Melvin Brown. So I'm going to call back to a different one, in that it's just funny. This morning I was listening to a podcast between somebody very much on the left and somebody very much on the right, and it was a debate, and man, was it enlightening to hear both sides, regardless of which you're on. And it was, don't think, political debate. Don't think name calling. These were two gentlemen. It was two gentlemen in instance, but doesn't need to be gentlemen, who were understanding of the other's point of view, completely disagreed. Yeah. But I bet both of them left it sharper in their own thoughts, more empathetic towards the other's thoughts, and probably in a better place to move forward than, unfortunately, a lot of people, because they're not willing to take on, not confrontationally, but take on those thoughts of people they don't agree with.
Yeah. That is not Gary. Let's listen to his snippet.
There's a tipping point at which computers start working for you, right? That a lot of what we have kids do with computers in schools, even in the best logo cases, constructivist cases of you have some idea, you communicate it to the computer. If it does it correctly, then it reinforces your own thinking. If it does it incorrectly, you have to check your thinking and engage into debugging and different strategy formation. But you're always thinking for the computer in that scenario. There's a tipping point where the computer starts working for you. And that's like the macro purpose of computers, is they should do work for us. And very few kids get to that tipping point. And I think that's something that we should be a lot more attentive to as a goal.
Amir Jones is one of my favorite people to talk to and about. And one of those rare teachers who would have probably reached me if he were my teacher. Because he knows where students are at. He meets them there. And in this clip shows how he's looking for ways to connect to the students and with technology. So he's perfect for us here. And he got to start. He worked for me as an intern a long time ago, which makes us both old, I think.
Well, and I just lived vicariously through his whole episode. I studied broadcasting, and I love and all of that digital communication is how I got into technology in the first place. And so to kind of relive my days as an early teacher, teaching broadcasting as the way he teaches with the music. Oh man, so this episode definitely filled my cup.
Yeah, Amir is the second generation Alex. He should be so successful in life as whatever that is you're wearing in that sweatshirt.
In my music technology class, we learn a broad range of things. So it's from operating professional sound systems, from wiring. We started the basics, cable management, how to properly wrap a cable. They learn how to operate soundboards. They learn about speakers, amplification. And then we get into some networking because everything's gone so digital now. They've learned AV over IP and all sorts of things. We even learn how to do some light tech support. We'll tear down and build some computers here and there at the very end of the project, but they learn how to build a studio build. So a lot of really useful skills, I think, serve them well outside the classroom.
Well, Bob, we are coming to the end, and we end our typical episodes with who's your favorite teacher? And I think one of my favorite teacher conversations that we had was with the students, the Esports students at Nampa High School in Idaho. And these were, the reason this one is so powerful is that not only does it show the power of the teacher, which we're usually seeking, but also the power of esports, right? These are 3 kids, only one of them really entertained going to college. And esports, it helped them think about their gaming life through an entirely different lens, which opened up worlds of possibilities for these kids.
I think that it's appropriate for us to end this with students because that's where we're starting, right? That's why we're here, is for students. I think in the esports really did make a difference for them in how they thought about their lives and what they could do. But it was interesting to me that each of the students, including one who thought he didn't have a favorite teacher until he had to pick one and started talking and went on and on about how that teacher helped. It's like, that's my point. When we ask that question, that's my point is when you think about it, there is somebody there who made a difference for you, who gave you confidence or gave you a better way of doing things or just listened to you when, let's face it, being a teenager sucks. It's terrible. I have no desire to go back to it. So you never know where that difference is being made for a student.
I've never had a favorite because I've never got really close and connected with teachers. But if I'm going off of who had the biggest impact, it was a middle school teacher I had. His name was Mr. McCrae. And the reason I say that is because he made learning fun and showed me learning didn't have to be always boring. And that's when I got introduced to laptops. We were using the laptops to learn. And the way we learned was through Minecraft. Like you could do projects on Minecraft and stuff. And then just the way he went about any assignment, like he would have a way to make it fun. So I'd say like the reason I like him the most is because he made learning for me like not always boring. It doesn't always got to be boring. It can be fun and you can still learn. And that's why I like him the most.
They say, hard to believe, another year passes. And when I was young, I was like, yeah, they go by. But as we flash back to our 80s themed, I have no idea. I just can't do it. Alex, you're killing me with that thing. But as we look back, they really do go faster. And we're quite grateful for the people who have taken the time to listen to our podcast and our ramblings and our great guests and you and I talking in between and over them. Mostly you.
Well, and we've got some great episodes coming up, some that we've recorded and some that we've just started to chat with the guests about. And I'm really looking forward to this, but we really want to make sure that we also hear from you. And so if you haven't joined our LinkedIn community yet, check out Learning Through Technology podcast on LinkedIn and look for the post where we're asking for you to give us guest ideas or topic ideas and share your thoughts there so that we can go out and gather those and make more great episodes in 2025. So Happy New Year, Bob.
Happy New Year, Alex.
And Happy New Year to all of you. Let's have a great 2025.
Learning Through Technology, a K-12 EdTech podcast, is brought to you by STS Education, a Pacific OneSource company. To learn more about how educators can leverage technology to drive successful educational outcomes, check us out at www.stsed.com. Connect with us by searching for Learning Through Technology in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss an episode. On behalf of the team at STS Education, thanks for joining us.